I'm 15 years old, sitting in the back of a car next to my best friend Nikki and her 13-year-old brother. Her mom and her brother's friend are in the front, and slowly, the car pulls up to an old farmhouse in the countryside. The car stops, and we all get out. The others head inside, but Nikki and I hang back. "Get the camera," I tell her, and as she goes to get it, I run into the middle of the field, and once I'm far enough, I hang my arms by my side, tilt my head down, and give her my best horror movie-inspired glare. "Take a picture!" I yell. You see, this is back in 2012, when taking photos on a digital camera to later post them on Facebook was the pinnacle of teenage pastimes. And I was so excited, because for the next week, me and Mickey were gonna have tons of times for photo shoots. We were getting to stay in this old farmhouse for our whole March break together. The farmhouse belonged to our next door neighbors in Toronto. And apparently it had been in their family for generations, but they just used it as a vacation home. And I was super excited to see the place because I'd been to the neighbor's house a few times in Toronto, and it was nice. They had those stairs that didn't just go straight down, they kind of like curved a little bit, and their fridge dispensed ice, so they were rich. And I was so confident that this place was also gonna be rich and fancy. But as I walk inside the house, what I don't realize is that while it is rich and fancy, it's also a little bit creepy. There's 2 floors, and on the first floor, there's this old wood-burning fireplace and ornate fancy armchairs. The bathroom has that black and white tiling and a clawfoot bathtub and a standalone sink. There's ornate mirrors covering the whole house. And upstairs, me and Nikki are sharing a bedroom together. And it's very feminine, but feminine from like 100 years ago. There's blue and white colonial wallpaper, there's a white iron antique bed frame, and there's this really big window with long white curtains pulled back by silk curtain hangers. But the creepiest part is definitely the staircase. From top to bottom, lining the walls, there are old photo frames with black and white photos in them. Each photo has either a single person or a group of people just standing there looking ahead. They're wearing this old, sort of stiff, uncomfortable looking clothes. The men have jackets on, and the women are wearing long dresses with those long sleeves and high collars, and no one is smiling. It's really creepy. The next few days go by in a flash. Me and Nikki play board games, we play table tennis, and we take tons and tons of photos. We take photos of the house, we take photos on the bed, we take selfies in those ornate mirrors, and of course, I practice my best girl standing in field. I have to admit, I'm getting really good at looking scary, but I know I can do better. So I spend a lot of time imagining what the face of that girl would look like. A face that screams, "Danger!" A face that warns its onlookers to leave. And all of this totally freaks Nikki out, which really makes me laugh. But I have to admit, I'm a little bit freaked out myself. Not from girls standing in field, but just from being here. I was born and raised in Toronto, and there are people everywhere, and honestly, being around people makes me comfortable. But up here, there's no one around. We're in the middle of nowhere. You can't even see the neighbors' houses. And there's a car, or there's a road, and barely any cars go down it. So, I don't know, it's just all feeling a little bit eerie. Then one night, me and Nikki are up in our bedroom. We're sitting in the double bed, and I'm on the side closest to the light switch, and she's to the left of me, near that wall with the big window. In between us, there's a laptop that's propped open, and our favorite TV show, American Horror Story, is all queued up. Yeah. I actually am not really in the mood to watch it. This season is about an insane asylum set in the 1960s that is run by these sadistic nuns and this twisted doctor that, spoiler alert, makes lampshades out of people's skin. And I'm just not in the mood. I'm really scared up here, but I really don't want to tell Nikki, because this just isn't my thing. Back in middle school, our friend group would watch horror movies every single weekend. We'd watch the classics like The Shining or The Exorcist, and everyone else would be screaming and crying, and I just kind of sit back laughing. Like, I genuinely wasn't afraid of these movies. They were just movies. But somehow this, right now, it feels a little bit different. I don't really know what to do, but I remind myself that I'm chill, I'm cool, I laugh at these things. I am strong, and I am the strong one in this friendship. So, I take a deep breath, and I turn off the light switch. Nikki presses play, and the opening music begins. Ba-da-pa-pa, ba-da-pa-pa, ba-da-pa-pa. And then, all of a sudden, I hear Nikki scream. I shoot my head to look at her, but she's looking at the wall. My eyes shoot upwards, and that's when I see it. In the window, there's a person. She's a tall and slender woman, and she's wearing this long dress with a high collar and long sleeves. It's white and it's lacy, and she seems to be glowing. And the worst part is, she doesn't have a face. It's blank and completely devoid of any features. It looks like a mannequin, and yet I can tell that she's staring at us. My chest goes tight, my breathing shallows, and I'm completely paralyzed. "Turn on the light!" Nikki yells, but I'm too scared to move. "Turn it on!" she says. So I summon the courage, and I flick on the light. I snap my head back, and the woman is gone. I look at Nikki, and we're both breathing heavily. Did you just see something?" she says. Did you see someone?" I nod my head. "Yeah." And she says, well, what did it look like?" And I said, "She was this woman." And Nikki says, that's what I saw." And I ask her, "Well, what did the woman look like?" And Nikki tells me that she was tall and slender and wearing a long white lacy dress. I swallow and I say, "Yep, that's what I saw." And Nikki says, well, what about her face?" And I say, I don't know. I didn't see a face, but somehow I could tell she was looking at us." Nikki nods her head in agreement. "Where exactly did you see her?" she asks me. And I say, "She was in the window." Nikki pauses and says, "For me, she was standing right next to the bed, looking over us." "We have to go downstairs," I say. So we close the laptop, climb out of bed, and cling to each other as we descend the staircase. We get down to the living room, and her mom is there, curled up, reading a book, listening to music humming along as if nothing just happened. So we tell her, we just saw a ghost. And she's like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And we're like, no, really, we saw a ghost. And we tell her the whole story, and she doesn't seem that bothered by it. And she's like, "There must be an explanation. Maybe the boys were just playing outside with a flashlight." And we're like, "Yeah, okay, yeah." And so we go to find the boys, and they're in the dining room. We tell them everything that just happened, and they look at us like we're gonna say "got you," like playing a prank on them or something. But our tone doesn't change. Nikki asks them, "Were you guys playing outside, maybe like shining a light through our window?" And they both are like, "No, we've been playing table tennis in here all night." Nikki and I stay downstairs for as long as we can. But eventually, everyone heads upstairs to go to sleep, and we know we have to do the same. We head back to the bedroom and crawl under the covers. and hesitantly, I turn off the light. I cling to my blanket and I face away from the wall. I hear Nikki fall asleep, and I will myself to do the same. The next morning, sunlight fills our room. I'm still incredibly freaked out by what just happened, but everything feels a little bit better in the daylight. So Nikki and I get up out of bed, we go to brush our teeth in that creepy-looking bathroom, and slowly we walk down the stairs. As we walk down, we're eyeing all the photos on the wall. My eyes are scanning over each one when all of a sudden I gasp. In the middle of a group photo, I see someone I recognize. She's tall and slender, and she's wearing a long dress with a high collar. It's her. It's the woman from last night. I don't know how I know it, but I just do. So I turn to Nikki and I say, "Is there anyone you recognize from these photos?" And she says, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what about on 3? We both point to who we recognize." So we say it together. 1, 2, 3. And we both point to the same woman. We look at each other. We know exactly what to do. We need to get the camera. So we run downstairs, we grab the camera, and we scurry back up to take a photo of this woman. 2 weeks later, we're back in Toronto when I get a phone call from Nikki. She phones me up and she says, "Hey, Maddy, I have something to tell you." "Uh-huh," I say. She says, "I just showed my neighbor that photo of the girl that we took. And it turns out that's her great-great-grandmother named Helen Victoria. And apparently, she lived and died in that house. And that room we were staying in, that was hers." My heart starts to beat. "But that's not the worst part," she says. "Apparently other people have seen her. A few years ago, there was this man in a neighboring farmhouse, and he drives by in his car, and he phones up my neighbors and says, 'Hey, I didn't know you guys were up there.' And they're like, 'We're not.' And he says, 'Well, that's weird. I saw a woman in the back window.' And since then, 3 or 4 other people have also seen this woman. But the weird part is, it's always visitors that aren't related to the family. It's never somebody from the family. It's always an outsider." After that trip, I stopped watching American Horror Story. I stopped watching all scary movies. And most importantly, I stopped practicing my girls standing in field because I didn't have to imagine what that face would look like. I'd already seen it. Thank you.